Donald Trump's legal problems get worse. The former president is now facing new charges in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents inquiry. In the next half an hour, European champions England face Denmark at the Women's World Cup. We'll have the latest from Sydney.
And excitement builds. We're here live at Baller FC in East London, following all the developments as they take place.
And Ukraine says it's retaken a small village in the Zaporizhzhia region as Western officials talk of a major thrust taking place. Hello, I'm Celia Hatton. Well, before our top story, just to say that in the next half hour, England take on Denmark in the group round of the Women's World Cup. We'll have the latest from our correspondents there in Sydney. But first, in other news, former US President Donald Trump is facing 3 new charges over his handling of classified documents after he left the White House. Federal prosecutors filed an indictment on Thursday evening, superseding formal federal charges made in June, to which Trump has pleaded not guilty. Mr. Trump and 2 of his employees at his Florida estate Mar-a-Lago have been charged with obstructing the investigation into the former president's retention of top-secret documents. Court files claim employees were asked to delete camera footage recordings of the basement where classified documents had been stored after they'd been served a subpoena to produce the video footage. Mr. Trump's campaign has responded to the new charges, calling it a, quote, desperate and flailing attempt by the government to harass him. On Thursday, Trump's lawyers also reportedly met with federal prosecutors in the investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 election. A potential indictment in that case is still looming. Well, our North America correspondent Sean Dilley reports from Washington.
The latest charges relate entirely to the existing court case in Florida, alleging that the former president had retained top secret documents after leaving office. Now, those are said to have included defense information. Mr. Trump had already been told he would be facing trial for this next May. His aide, Walt Nauta, had already been named as a co-defendant, and it's alleged that he and another employee, Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira, who's been named as a new defendant in this case, are being charged with obstructing investigators. In plain terms, the prosecution is claiming that both of Mr. Trump's employees worked on his behalf to destroy evidence. These are just allegations for now, but prosecutors say that having spoken to Walt Nauta last summer, Mr. de Oliveira attempted to pressurise an IT worker to delete CCTV footage of a storage room where documents were stored. Now, this was said to be 2 days after a subpoena was served for that footage. Mr. Trump and Mr. Nauta had already pleaded not guilty to the other charges in this case. A statement by the Trump campaign after the charge described the allegations as more than a continued desperate and flailing attempt by what he called the Biden crime family and their Department of Justice to harass President Trump and those around him.
Well, Josh Gerstein, senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, told us more about the new charges.
There are 2 new charges of obstruction of justice against former President Trump. Basically, the prosecutors are now alleging that he essentially directed a scheme. It sounds like it went through a couple of other employees, kind of in a daisy chain, ending up with this fellow Carlos de Oliveira, who worked down at Mar-a-Lago, who was added as a defendant in the criminal case today, where the message to him was basically, the boss, it's in quotes in the indictment in several places, the boss wants this video footage erased, which would be one thing, except for the fact that just a few days earlier, prosecutors had served a grand jury subpoena on Trump's lawyers asking for this specific footage. So obviously it's a very damaging allegation and a very serious one, sort of adding to the pile of counts in this indictment that the president was already facing.
Well, the clock's counting down to England taking on Denmark in day 9 of the Women's World Cup. Already today, the game between Argentina and South Africa has ended 2-2, and it was a bit of a nail-biter. Argentina trailed 2-0 against South Africa, and for large parts of the game, South Africa looked set for an historic win. But in the 74th minute of the game, Argentina mounted a remarkable comeback, denying South Africa their first ever Women's World Cup victory. Well, plenty more action today. China will face Haiti. And coming up very soon, England will take on Denmark. Well, let's get more now from our correspondent Shaima Khalil, who's in Sydney, and our reporter Yasmin Dewan, who's at a watch party in East London. Shaima, tell me more about what's going on there.
England come into this World Cup as the European champions, and that comes with confidence, but it also comes with a lot of pressure and responsibility. And there's a lot of excitement about this team. We heard from England defender Lucy Bronze, who said, "We know what we can offer as a team. We are confident that we can be at top form for this game." But when I spoke to fans, it was different because of what happened with Haiti in the first game. It was called nervy, it was called lackluster. They did deliver that win and those 3 points, but it did feel like they were not on top form. So among the fans that I spoke to, there was a lot of excitement, a lot of support, but also a lot of nerves.
Yeah, excited. I think it should be a good result. Obviously, the opening game wasn't quite as smooth as we might have hoped it would be, but I think, strong side, Denmark, should be an interesting game, and hopefully we'll get the right result.
Yeah, I'm just ready for the goals to come. Once we get one, they're going to come. They're going to come. Yeah.
The Lionesses have changed the game in quite a big way, especially that moment where they won the Euros.
Yeah.
How do you think they're going to fare in the World Cup?
I think we're just going to win the whole thing. Easy.
And how do you feel about them as a team now?
I just love watching them. They just seem so happy and friends, and they just love what they're doing, and it makes me love watching them.
And of course, they're great players.
Yeah, amazing players. And I mean, when they're playing at their best, they play some really excellent football to watch. And I think it's really opened up women's football to a new audience as well. People are watching them because they're good football players, not just because it's a novelty or something a bit different.
You're watching BBC News. Apologies for some technical problems that have affected our output in the past few minutes. Ukraine's military says it's had success on one